10 years. A full decade. That's how long we'd been married. They say time has a way of smoothing over rough edges in a relationship, but I've learned something else. It also has a way of hiding the cracks, letting them grow in silence until one day, a gust of wind, or one offhand comment, splits everything wide open. That night, our anniversary, started like a celebration of everything we'd built. The restaurant was Ashley's favorite. This place tucked away in a quiet corner of downtown Austin, with an ivy-covered patio and candles flickering at each table. We'd been there a few times over the years, mostly for birthdays or big news, and the staff knew us well enough to greet us by name. 10 years? Our waiter said with a grin when we walked in. That's rare these days. Ashley beamed at him. Feels like 5, she said. I smiled too, even though for me it felt like 20. I don't mean that in a bitter way, just honest. Marriage isn't what the movies sell you. It's not candlelit dinners and stolen kisses in the rain. It's morning breath and mismatched schedules, and trying not to lose your temper when the other person forgets. Again, to unload the dishwasher. But it's also shared jokes, sleepy Sunday mornings, and the quiet kind of love that feels like coming home. At least that's what I believed. That's what I wanted to believe we still had. Ashley looked incredible that night, the kind of effortless that only comes with effort. Her light summer dress, soft and elegant, clung in just the right way. Her hair was swept up, a few loose strands framing her face. Exactly the kind of undone look that still somehow made her look like she'd stepped out of a magazine. She wore that perfume she'd stopped wearing somewhere around year 8, the one she used to reserve for special occasions. I noticed. I always noticed. We were seated at a long table outside under strands of warm lights, surrounded by a few of our closest friends, people who had known us for years. It wasn't a huge gathering, maybe 8 of us total. Just enough for 2 shared bottles of wine and overlapping conversations. I ordered Ashley's favorite, a dry white she always claimed reminded her of our honeymoon. She smiled at that, said it out loud to the table. Remember when we thought that was the hardest part of marriage? Sharing a bathroom in Florence? Everyone laughed. So did I. Felt good. For a moment, everything did. There was this familiar rhythm to it all. Her reaching for my glass instead of hers when the waiter refilled it. Her hand resting on my thigh under the table like it used to during double dates in our 20s. Even the way she looked at me when I mispronounced the fancy cheese on the appetizer board. Half amused, half annoyed. All of it felt normal, safe, comfortable. Then someone, Matt, I think, made a joke. One of those light, teasing comments you make when the wine's kicked in and you're feeling just bold enough to be playful. Damn, Ashley, he said, raising his glass. You look like you're headed for a date tonight. The group laughed. Someone else chimed in. Better watch out, man, they said to me. You let her out of the house looking like that? All harmless. Classic friend group banter. The kind you're supposed to laugh off. But Ashley didn't laugh it off. She took a sip of her wine, tilted her head slightly, and with the faintest smile said, Maybe I really should go on a date. Why not? And then she looked directly across the table. Tyler. The pause was barely noticeable, but I saw it, felt it like a pressure drop in the room. The laughter came anyway, nervous mostly. Someone snorted. Someone else said, Yikes, 10 years really is the wall, huh? And clinked glasses with the person next to them. Ashley laughed too loud. Even, but it was the glance that stayed with me. Tyler smiled back at her. It was subtle but unmistakable. The kind of smile that said we're in on something. And she didn't look away right away. She didn't even glance at me. For a few seconds I wasn't there. That's when I felt it. That weightless, sinking feeling. Like when you miss a step going down the stairs, and for a split second your stomach lurches before your foot hits solid ground. Only this time there was no ground. Just the realization that something about her had shifted. Or maybe it had been shifting for a while and I was only just now willing to see it. On the drive home, the silence felt heavier than the conversation at dinner. I watched the city blur past her window reflection, the lights streaking like smudged memories. She was scrolling through her phone, thumb flicking up in rapid swipes, like she was trying to escape into someone else's life. Couldn't hold it in. What did you mean by that? I asked. She didn't look up. By what? That comment. About going on a date. Why'd you say that? She laughed once, dry and sharp. It was a joke. You don't get jokes anymore? I kept my eyes on the road. You looked at Tyler when you said it. Her tone turned icy. You're being ridiculous. I saw you. She sighed, hard enough to fog up the window. You know what your problem is? You don't know how to let things go. You twist everything into something dark. It was a comment, a sarcastic throwaway. God, Mark, can't I just say something without it becoming some interrogation? I didn't say anything for a moment, just gripped the steering wheel tighter. I'm not interrogating you, I said quietly. I'm trying to understand what's happening. Well, she said, arms crossed now, maybe that's the problem. You always think something is happening. We didn't talk the rest of the ride. When we got home, she went straight upstairs, left her heels by the door and her purse on the kitchen counter like always. Nothing out of place. Nothing you could point to and say, see, that's when it changed. But it had changed. I could feel it. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Ashley scrolled through her phone beside me. Couldn't sleep. Not because of what she said, but because of how easy it was for her to say it. And more importantly, how natural it was for Tyler to smile back. That night didn't explode. There was no yelling, no slammed doors. Nothing that would tip off our friends or leave evidence for a therapist. It was just a moment, a tiny flicker in a candlelit dinner that I couldn't stop replaying. But I see now that that's how these things always start. Not with confessions. Not with lipstick stains or found receipts or unlocked texts. They start with moments, with glances, with jokes that aren't really jokes. I didn't know it then, but that was the first real crack in our marriage. A quiet warning in the middle of a celebration. And I'd spend the next few weeks trying to convince myself it didn't mean anything, when deep down I already knew it did. After that night, everything looked different, even the past. It's funny how a single moment can crack something open inside you. Like when you finally notice a smell in your house and suddenly can't believe you ever lived with it. That dinner, that joke, it didn't just stick with me. It rewrote things. Things I'd brushed off, ignored, excused. Now they echoed louder, sharper. Ashley had started staying late at work about 3 months before the dinner. At first, it didn't even register. Her department was always chasing some deadline, especially around quarterly reports. She came home saying things like, "You know how corporate is. Every Friday is a fire drill." I nodded. Believed her. Why wouldn't I? But now that I was paying attention, the pattern didn't make sense. She'd get home around 9:30 or 10. Never tired. Not like someone who'd been at war with spreadsheets and management meetings for hours. She walked in glowing. Her makeup still perfect. Lipstick untouched. Eyes bright. There was this energy about her. Like she'd just come back from something that fed her, not drained her. I told myself maybe she'd gotten a second wind. Maybe the pressure was making her sharper, more alive. Or maybe she was just happy to be somewhere else. Then there was the phone. We never had any rules about technology between us. For most of our marriage, our phones were just phones. They sat on the counter, charged on the nightstand. We shared chargers, playlists, even passwords. But gradually, subtly, her phone became something else. I noticed it the first time when she took it with her into the bathroom. Not just once, but every time. Like it was her lifeline. I'd be brushing my teeth and hear the buzz of notifications behind the closed door. Sometimes a laugh. Sometimes silence. Either way, she never brought it out until she was done. One night, I saw a preview flash on the lock screen while we were watching TV. It was just a name, Tyler Fire, with a fire emoji. She picked it up fast and tilted it away before I could get a better look. I said nothing. My stomach tightened, but my voice stayed still. "Group chat," she mumbled. "Work stuff. They're being stupid." I nodded. Didn't ask. That's when I started lying to myself, too. The new passcode came a week later. I didn't even notice at first. I just asked to borrow her phone to check something. She hesitated, then handed it to me, already unlocked. That hesitation told me everything. It wasn't about trust. It was about control. She was still willing to appear open, just not actually be open. I didn't mention it. I didn't want the fight. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. That I'd always hated feeling like the jealous type. That I'd rather be wrong than accusatory. I convinced myself of that over and over because the alternative was too painful. But her laptop made it harder to ignore. We used to share a single computer, sitting side by side on the couch while we streamed movies or planned vacations. But lately, she had taken to using her work laptop exclusively. She'd sit at the kitchen table late at night, the screen tilted just enough that I couldn't see. Sometimes, when I walked in unannounced, she'd shut it so quickly it startled me. "Too many tabs open," she'd say with a grin, tapping the lid. "Don't judge me." I never saw what was on the screen, but I knew it wasn't spreadsheets. She also stopped humming. That sounds small, I know. But for years, Ashley had this habit of humming under her breath when she did things. Dishes, folding laundry, watering the plants. Nothing specific, just little melodies, half-formed tunes. It was like her soul's background music. Happy, unconscious. One day, I realized I hadn't heard it in weeks. In its place, there was something else. Tension. A cautious way of moving. Conversations clipped short. Eye contact reduced to the bare minimum. Like I was someone she had to manage, not talk to. She still smiled. Still laughed at my dumb jokes in front of friends. Still kissed me goodnight sometimes. But it felt transactional, like she was covering her tracks, checking boxes. It was like living with a version of her that looked the same but didn't breathe the same air. I was a roommate she was avoiding disappointing, not a partner she wanted to come home to. I tried to adapt. Tried to meet her where she was. I started cooking again, her favorites. I started leaving her notes in her lunch bag like I used to back when we were newlyweds. I'd say things like, "Good luck with your meeting today, Redheart," or, "You've got this, babe." I even made reservations for a weekend getaway in the hill country. She said she couldn't, too busy. Instead, she went to brunch with the girls. But I never saw photos. And when I asked who came, she always said, "Just the usual crew," and moved on. One night, I stayed up late just sitting in the living room. She came home around 10. I asked how work was. She said fine, and went straight to the bedroom. I followed a few minutes later. She was in bed, scrolling again, screen lighting up her face. I kissed her cheek. She flinched, not in fear, just surprise, like she hadn't expected affection from me anymore. That was when I knew. Not the affair, not the details, not the logistics, but the emotional truth. Ashley wasn't mine anymore. Not because I'd lost her, but because she'd already started leaving piece by piece. And she wasn't turning back. I think I kept pretending because it gave me control. If I didn't ask, then technically she hadn't lied. If I smiled, then technically we were fine. If I held her hand and she didn't pull away, then maybe we were still okay. But inside I felt it. The slow erosion. The way silence grew between us like ivy on a house. Unseen at first, then all at once everywhere. One morning, I woke up and she was already gone. Her side of the bed cold. No note. Just a faint trace of perfume in the air and a half-empty coffee cup on the counter. I stared at it like it held answers. Like if I looked long enough, the steam would spell out the truth. I told myself it was work. That she was just rushing again. That she'd text me later. She didn't. So I did what I always did. I made excuses. But that night, as I stood brushing my teeth in front of the mirror, I looked at myself and saw someone I didn't recognize. Tired, dull, dimmed. A man trying to hold onto a life that had already been rewritten without him. And still, I didn't confront her. Because admitting it out loud would mean accepting that the person I loved, the person I had built my entire adult life around, was no longer walking beside me. She was walking ahead, and not looking back. You don't wake up one day and decide to catch someone in a lie. That kind of moment isn't planned. It's slow. It builds. Like a pot left to boil, the bubbles come before the steam. You feel the heat long before it overflows. And I had been feeling it for weeks. By the time that Saturday rolled around, I was no longer guessing. I was just waiting. For the moment. For the mistake. For something I could point to and say, "Here. This is real. You can stop pretending now. That morning, she came down the stairs dressed casually. Jeans, light blouse, minimal makeup. Nothing dramatic. But something was off. Her energy was too light, too rehearsed. She had her keys in her hand and her bag already packed over her shoulder. Going somewhere? I asked, pretending to scroll my phone. She didn't miss a beat. Yeah, work thing. One of the guys in my department has a birthday. We're doing a little team thing, just for a few hours. I nodded like that made sense. I even smiled. Sounds fun. She returned the smile, but only with her mouth, not her eyes. Don't wait up. That part landed. Don't wait up on a Saturday afternoon. That wasn't something she would have said 6 months ago. But I played it cool. Text me if you need a ride. She nodded and was out the door. I stood there in the kitchen for a long moment, her perfume still hanging in the air. Then I grabbed my phone. We'd both had this trip history app installed for years. It started as a practical thing used for expense tracking and mileage during our commutes. It synced automatically. We both forgot it was even there. Until now. I opened it half expecting it to be empty or vague. But the most recent trip was still sitting in the queue, unarchived. A straight sh*T from her office building to a motel. Not a house. Not a coworker's rental or birthday party. A roadside motel about 30 minutes outside of town, right off the highway. The kind of place you wouldn't even notice unless you were looking for it or hiding in it. I just stared at the map on the screen. My pulse didn't spike. My breath didn't catch. It was weird how calm I felt, like my body had already prepared for the blow. I just hadn't known it was coming today. Without thinking, I grabbed my jacket and keys. Didn't pack anything. Didn't call anyone. I just drove. The road was familiar. I'd passed that exit 100 times over the years, never giving it a second glance. Now I couldn't stop staring at the signs, the peeling paint of the old diner next door, the flickering vacancy sign of the motel that looked like it hadn't changed since the 90s. Her car was already there, parked like it belonged. I pulled into a spot far enough to stay hidden but close enough to see. The sun was high. The world was moving as if nothing was wrong. I turned off the engine and waited. 15 minutes passed. I kept my eyes on the door. Then they came out. Ashley stepped out first, holding her phone like she was checking the time. But she wasn't typing. She was just fidgeting. Behind her, Tyler appeared. I could tell it was him from the way he carried himself, even before I saw his face. He was buttoning his shirt. Ashley reached into her purse and pulled out a lipstick. She used the window of the car as a mirror. Applied it like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Casual. Confident. Not a trace of guilt in her movements. Then he leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't quick. Wasn't stolen. It was practiced. Soft. The kind of kiss that's built on repetition, not impulse. And just like that, it was done. They got into their cars like they were leaving a meeting. No rush. No shame. Just two people going back to their lives. I didn't move. Didn't grab my phone. Didn't cry. I just watched them drive away. It was the most painful kind of confirmation. Not explosive, not dramatic. Just quiet certainty. The moment you realize the person you love has another life that doesn't include you. I sat in the car until the lot was empty. Then I stepped out. I didn't go inside. I didn't ask the front desk for a room number or camera footage. I didn't want details. I already knew everything I needed to know. I walked past the motel door, room 212, the curtains still drawn. The faint outline of 2 coffee cups in the windowsill. They didn't even take their drinks with them. Part of me thought I might throw up, but it passed. Instead, I got back in the car and drove home. The whole time, I kept replaying the moment she kissed him. Not the kiss itself, but the ease of it. That's what hit the hardest. It meant it wasn't new. It meant this wasn't just a mistake. This was routine. When I pulled into our driveway, the house looked the same. Porch light off. Our neighbor's sprinkler misting into the flower bed like nothing had changed. But everything had. I walked in slowly. The silence inside was deafening. Her coat still hung on the hook. Her shoes by the door. the faint scent of lavender from the candle she'd left burning in the entryway. I went upstairs, took out my suitcase. Not the big one, just the carry-on. The one I used to take on weekend trips back when we'd travel together. I packed deliberately, nothing rushed, just the essentials. A few shirts, jeans, charger, passport, my spare wedding ring, the one I wore when the original was too tight in the summer. I didn't slam drawers or break things or cry. I wrote a note, just one sentence. I won't pretend anymore. I left it on the kitchen table, underneath the ceramic bowl she kept filled with fake lemons. I didn't text her, didn't block her. I just walked out, and I didn't look back. Because the truth was no longer hiding in glances or phone screens or vague explanations. It was out in the open, clear, undeniable, and so was my decision. There's this idea people have about leaving, that it's loud, explosive, something you do in a fit of rage after screaming your lungs out and throwing someone's clothes onto the lawn. But that's not how it happened for me. When I walked out of the house that day, suitcase in hand, it wasn't anger guiding me. It wasn't pain, even, at least not the sharp, dramatic kind. It was clarity. The kind that hits you like cold air after being in a smoke-filled room too long. The kind that makes you realize how numb you've been and how badly you've needed to breathe. I didn't go far at first. I drove to a small Airbnb on the edge of town. A converted garage that had been turned into a guest house. It had a bed, a kitchenette, and a window that overlooked nothing in particular. That suited me just fine. I remember the first night I slept there. Not well. I lay awake for hours, the silence of the place too complete. No creaking pipes. No distant hum of Ashley's white noise machine. No footsteps in the hall. Just me and the sound of a fan slowly rotating on the ceiling. It hit me all at once, the finality of it. This wasn't a trip. This wasn't a timeout. This was the end. Even though I'd packed like I'd be back, deep down, I knew I wasn't coming home. In the morning, I turned off my phone. I didn't want to see her name, didn't want to read her texts because I knew they'd come. Eventually, she'd walk into the house and see the note. She'd pace the floors and check the bedroom, the driveway, the garage. She'd call maybe once, maybe a dozen times. She'd cry. Maybe she'd even get angry. But none of that mattered anymore. I had nothing left to explain. The strange how quickly the mind shifts when you've made a decision. Just days earlier, I'd been analyzing every word she said, every movement, every small gesture for signs of guilt, of remorse, of love. Now, I didn't care what she felt. I only cared that I was finally choosing me. I spent that first week in a kind of limbo. Days passed in a blur. I worked remotely, sent polite emails, sat in Zoom meetings pretending nothing was wrong. At night, I'd heat up cheap frozen dinners, watch muted reruns on an old TV, and drink tea instead of wine. Couldn't drink wine. Wine reminded me of her. One night, I caught myself looking through old photos on my laptop. I saw us in New Orleans, laughing on Bourbon Street. Us hiking in Utah. Her standing on a cliff's edge with her arms outstretched like she owned the sky. Us at our wedding. She in that ivory dress. Me in a suit too tight across the chest because I'd gained weight that year and didn't tell anyone. In every photo, we looked happy. I'm sure in those moments we were happy. But memory is funny. It saves **TS, not storylines. It erases the parts you'd rather not remember and enhances the ones you want to relive. The truth is, I hadn't seen the real version of Ashley in a long time. I'd been holding on to the echo of a person who stopped showing up. And I wasn't blameless in that. Maybe I got too comfortable, too safe, too predictable. Maybe I missed the signs because I didn't want to admit that the person I loved was slipping away. But the difference between comfort and distance is subtle until it isn't. On the 5th day, I went back to the house. She wasn't there, probably at work or somewhere else. I let myself in with my key. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. It was like stepping into a museum of our life. Too clean, too quiet, too staged. I walked into the bedroom. My side of the bed still unmade, the imprint of my pillow faint but visible. Her robe was draped over the chair in the corner, and one of her earrings was sitting on the nightstand. Just one. like the other had been taken somewhere I wasn't invited. I packed more things this time. Not everything, just what was mine. I left the framed photos, the books we shared, the coffee maker she insisted on keeping even though it broke half the time. I left the plant she named Gary and the ugly Christmas sweater she bought me that I only wore once. I wasn't interested in a clean division. I just wanted a clean exit. Before I left, I stood in the doorway of the bedroom and looked back one last time. Not out of sentiment, but to make peace with it. It wasn't our room anymore. It was just a room in a house that no longer belonged to me. That night, she finally texted. The screen lit up in my hand while I was sitting on the edge of the guesthouse bed, eating a bowl of reheated pasta. "Mark, please, can we talk?" I didn't respond. A minute later, "I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. I came home and you were just gone. I don't understand." Then, "Can we meet? Please, just talk. Just once." Still, I said nothing. What was there to talk about? She already knew what she did. Maybe not the moment I knew. Maybe not the room number or the time of day. But she knew the bigger truth. She knew I'd been unraveling for weeks. And she said nothing. She watched me erode in real time. And she let it happen. The next morning, she called. I let it ring out. Then again. And again. Eventually, I powered off the phone completely. Not out of spite, but survival. Because I knew if I heard her voice, some part of me would still try to fix it. And there was nothing left to fix. I started building a life in fragments. One task at a time. I opened a separate bank account, got a P.O. box, updated my address on every dumb website that insisted I re-verify my identity. I told my boss I was going through some personal things and left it at that. He didn't press. The freedom came not in grand gestures, but in little things. The first time I laughed without it catching in my throat. The first time I cooked something just for me, and not to impress anyone. The first time I slept all the way through the night and didn't dream about coming home to find her gone. It was like learning how to live in my own skin again, and realizing how long I'd been holding my breath. People talk about closure like it's a moment, a conversation, a final fight. But that's not how it works. Closure doesn't come from the person who broke you. It comes from the part of you that finally stops begging them to explain why. And I had reached that point. So no, I didn't disappear with rage. I disappeared with resolution. No slamming doors. No loud goodbyes. No performance. Just the truth. I was done pretending. And she would have to live with that silence. Because when someone betrays you, they expect chaos. They expect tears and shouting and slammed fists on countertops. What they don't expect is nothing. And nothing? Nothing says more than any final word ever could. 2 days after I left, Ashley started posting again. It began subtly. A photo of her hand resting near the kitchen window, wedding ring off, the light catching the glass just right. You could barely tell what it was at first. Just a soft-filtered sh*T with a caption that read, "Sometimes life doesn't go how you planned it." Fog. She didn't tag me, didn't mention my name, but it was clear what she was doing. The next post came a few hours later. A photo carousel, 5 pictures total. All throwbacks. One of us on the beach in Galveston, arms wrapped around each other, laughing. One of her blowing out birthday candles. Another of our dog, Murphy, back when we still had him. The caption was long. Too long. It started like this. I don't usually share personal things here, but I feel like I need to say this. For me, and for anyone else who's ever had the rug pulled out from under them. I didn't read the rest at first. Just scrolled past it, half numb. But curiosity is cruel. Later that night, I pulled it back up. She wrote about heartbreak, about being blindsided, about how hard it is to grieve someone who is still alive, just no longer with you. She quoted Rumi, something about wounds being where the light enters. She even thanked her beautiful friends for holding her up during the hardest moment of her life. I checked the comments. Over 100 of them already. "You're so strong, Ash broken heart. He's a fool for letting you go. You deserve the world. Keep shining." There it was. She wasn't just mourning me. She was repackaging me. reframing the story so she could be the one people pitied, the one people rallied behind, the abandoned wife, the innocent. And it worked. People ate it up. Her friends reposted it. One of them tagged a therapist account and wrote, "This hit hard. Sending you so much love." I kept reading. I don't know why. Some part of me wanted to see if she'd tell the truth. Just once. Just a crack of it. But there was nothing, no mention of Tyler, no motel, no affair. Just vague references to emotional disconnection and not being seen. She ended the post with, "Sometimes the people who say, 'I love you,' the loudest are the ones who leave you the quietest." I actually laughed at that. Laughed in a way that scared me a little, cold, hollow, almost bitter. Because that was the moment I realized what she was doing wasn't just damage control. She was trying to rewrite the ending. And she was writing it like she was the one who got left behind. A few days later came the stories, short, timed little windows into her world. Clips of her getting brunch with two of her girlfriends, all three laughing over mimosas. A photo of her yoga mat with the caption, "Healing one breath at a time." A video of a sunset over Lady Bird Lake with some indie folk song playing in the background. She looked radiant in every clip, like someone at peace, someone embracing change, someone shedding a heavy layer of pain and stepping into a new chapter. But then came the one that caught me off guard. It was a photo of her and a few others at what looked like a mutual friends gathering. One of those casual backyard hangs. String lights, plastic cups, someone's dog trying to steal a hot dog off the grill. In the background of the photo, blurry but unmistakable, was me, standing off to the side, alone, staring into my drink. I remembered that night. It was taken months ago, way before things fell apart, before I even suspected anything. And I looked exactly how I felt back then. Tired, a little distant, like someone trying to fake contentment. She captioned the post, "Some people are right in front of you and still feel a million miles away." She didn't tag me, but she didn't have to. It was a calculated move, just vague enough to be poetic, just clear enough to suggest something. That I had drifted, that she had been trying, that she had been there. It hurt in a way I didn't expect. Not because I missed her, but because I saw how easily she could manipulate the truth, not just to others but to herself. Because that night I remembered trying. I remembered asking her what was wrong, telling her I felt disconnected, asking if we should take a weekend away, talk to someone, reset. She brushed it off, said I was being dramatic, said I was too sensitive. But now here I was, turned into a symbol, a distant man, a ghost in the background of her grief tour. I started getting messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. "Hey man, saw Ashley's post. Everything okay? Don't want to pry, but if you ever need to talk, I'm here. Sorry things didn't work out. Hope you're hanging in there." Even my sister texted, "What's this Ashley stuff about you just leaving? Is she serious?" I didn't reply to any of them. What was I supposed to say? She left me first emotionally, and then physically. I just happened to be the one who walked out the door last. But that's not how people see it. People remember who closed the door, not who burned down the room before it happened. A week after her post went viral, she called me again. I didn't pick up. Then she left a voicemail. Her voice was soft, familiar, almost gentle in a way I hadn't heard in a long time. "Mark," she said, I know you've seen the posts. I didn't mean to paint you as the villain. I didn't know what to do. People kept asking. I felt like I had to say something. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing. "I miss you. I miss us. I keep going over everything in my head, trying to figure out where we fell apart. I didn't mean for things to happen like this. I didn't mean to lose you. Please, if there's still anything left, can we talk?" I deleted the message. Not out of cruelty. Not because I didn't feel something when I heard her voice, but because I knew what she was doing. She wasn't reaching for me. She was reaching for the version of me that still made her feel like a good person. And I wasn't willing to be that person anymore. Because the truth is, love doesn't just vanish overnight. It fades, yes. It stumbles. It hurts. But it doesn't disappear. Not unless someone opens a door and walks into someone else's arms. And once that door is opened, there's no going back. You don't get to rewrite the story after you've walked off the page. You don't get to be the protagonist in a tragedy you caused. She was grieving the loss of her image, not our marriage. I had done my grieving in silence, quiet, private. She had taken hers to Instagram, and that was the difference. I wasn't the one who exposed her. I didn't have to be. A few weeks after her posts, a local gossip blog leaked footage, security camera stills from the motel. Ashley and Tyler entering and exiting the room. Her lipstick perfect, his shirt half-buttoned, time-stamped, undeniable. The source? A former front desk manager who recognized her from social media. The post went viral. The internet didn't hold back. Comments tore apart the image she had tried so carefully to rebuild. He didn't leave for nothing. Karma always comes around. Tyler left his job. Ashley wasn't fired, but people stopped including her. Her name disappeared from project memos. Invitations dried up. Even her mother sent me a letter. You did the right thing. She destroyed what you had all by herself. In the end, it wasn't my words that undid her story. It was the truth caught on tape, refusing to be rewritten. She called a month later. No more acting, just rawness. I messed up. I was lost. I didn't know how to stop. I listened, not to punish her, but because I was ready to hear it without pain. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I didn't feel anger, just distance. I hope you find peace, I said, then hung up. Now I live in Idaho. Remote job. Mornings with coffee and silence. Time doesn't heal, but it recedes. The noise fades. You stop asking why. The marriage didn't explode. It just faded. No scandal. No screaming. Just the quiet truth and the slow, steady return to myself.